If you find content creation overwhelming and you cannot be consistent because it takes so much time, then stick around because in this video, I'll show you the key 3 strategies that have helped me to be consistently posting and growing my brand for almost 2 years, while at the same time starting and growing my business. And these strategies actually helped me realize that I didn't have a time problem, but that I have a preparation problem. So my mission is to show you how to structure, plan, and multiply one single idea into many in the less amount of time possible. So you can actually be efficient, have a system, and not just post for the sake of posting. And with the last strategy, I'll also give you a massive starter pack with free content templates that you can use to make this process 10 times easier. So let's start with strategy number 1. And I'm sure you've experienced this at least one time, where there is someone who just looks like they have infinite post ideas and they just keep posting and posting and posting, while others, like you and me at some point, feel like we cannot even keep up with the next content idea. And the difference here that I notice is that they don't have a different creativity level. They just have a different perspective. And when I started building my personal brand on LinkedIn, I had the same problem. I was following a one-on-one approach to content ideas and creating posts. But I always feel exhausted and mentally drained for knowing what was going to be the next content idea. But it all changed when I got the chance to talk with founders, business owners, / content creators too, that have follower accounts with over 100,000 followers. And I realized that they had this different perspective because they see the full picture and they think about the future first instead of thinking of a one-on-one approach. And of course, when I applied this, it all changed. And here I'm talking about the strategy of a content multiplier. And there's this quote that I'll put in the screen because I love this one by Justin Welsh, because he says, if you're publishing content daily, you need to remember 75% of your followers didn't see it, 80% of your followers won't remember, and 100% of your new followers never saw it. And the strategy that he mentions here is that it's okay to repurpose often because nobody remembers your content like you remember your content. Now, this is mainly for reposts into the same platform and just posting the same thing again. But we can apply this one with the content multiplier approach. And here's how it would look like. But all you gotta do is to think of a big content idea first. So for example, this YouTube video, of course, I created the script. And these will also be into my newsletter, but with a different format. And those are long pieces of content first, okay? If you post content on X, this can be a Twitter thread, X, whatever you wanna call it, but this can be a thread. And actually, as I also post on LinkedIn, this was a carousel the last week too. And this carousel, I'll also turn it into an infographic in a few weeks. And as I told you at the beginning of this video, I'm sharing with you my 3 favorite strategies. So I could perfectly make a specific YouTube video, only talk about this main strategy, right? Or I could make a whole carousel on that idea. So in my case, what I'm actually gonna do is that I'll turn these 3 strategies into individual carousels for LinkedIn, and at the same time, they can also be infographics. And at the same time, whatever idea I find that resonates more with people, I can create a YouTube video around that too. So that'll be now 9 different pieces of content, as I'm gonna be repurposing these 3 ideas into 3 different formats. So you can see that the bigger your first content idea is, the more you can expand on that. Ideally, lists or steps are the easiest ones to divide. And just a tip here, I like to leave a gap in between, let's say 4 to 6 weeks between ideas that are massively obvious or just repurpose with a different format. For example, the carousel on LinkedIn and the infographic will have a bigger gap. So as I was saying, this is a strategy that looks more into the future instead of surviving post by post or week by week, because you're actually thinking 6 weeks ahead or 4 weeks ahead. And that's the content multiplier approach. Now let's talk about the second strategy, because if you're creating content day by day or week by week, as I was mentioning before, you're not creating content in the smartest way possible. Let's just call it efficiency. And I actually discovered the next strategy that I'm gonna tell you when I was working in an agency where we were editing videos for founders who have around 100,000 followers in their Instagram. And it was so interesting for me to see, because these business owners, what they did was just to batch and put a group of content ideas first. After they got the ideas, they would turn those ideas into scripts like all by themselves or with a member of their team. And then they would just sit there and record those ideas, and they would send us 20 videos all at once. So we edited those 20 videos. Now, this strategy that I'm telling you here, it's used by some of the biggest names in the industry, and is, as I was saying, content batching. And content batching is the synonym of freedom, okay? Because you just record, create things in one go. You post later, and then you don't have to stress when you're creating that. And I promise you that when you do it the first time, you have this feeling of peace, and it just feels so different that now you have things planned and you don't have to worry about that. It just feels so peaceful. But I have a warning for you here, and it's something that I recommend to members in my community, because as I mainly help founders who are beginners creating content so they can grow their personal brand and attract more leads, especially on LinkedIn, then the problem that I found, it's, let's say I'm completely unaware of what works in my industry, also like what works best for me, what type of content I like more, what content performs better in my specific case. If I have zero idea about this, then I'll create a batch of 20 pieces of content, whether that's video or only text or image plus text, infographics, carousel, you name it. But my designs are not that good yet, or my hooks are not that strong. So if I want to improve, I'll have to wait until those 20 content pieces go out, and then I'll create the rest. Versus if we just batch between 5 or 10 content ideas, then we get faster loops of feedback. And we just do this like 3 to 4 times. And after we get a solid insight of what's working or not, that's when we start creating bigger and bigger batches of content to find more peace when you're planning your content calendar too. But overall, remember that batching your content is a massive game changer. Now let's just start with the next strategy, because I promise this was a massive game changer once I started applying this too. And if you've ever felt that you don't have inspiration anymore, you feel that your creativity it's drained, or things are just not running smoothly, you'll love this one too. Because waiting for inspiration is not really a strategy. And the solution to this problem is to build a content pipeline. Now, to build a content pipeline, you need to collect as many ideas as possible. Ideally, around 60 content ideas are ready to go. I love to do this in Notion because I can use a view that they have for a list, and then I can turn the same list into the view of a calendar. So I can also see when I'm planning to post those pieces of content too. Just be careful, because I wouldn't recommend you plan this content pipeline in an Excel or in a Google Sheet or in a Google Doc, because what happens when you do it in this way, from my experience, is that you just have things all over the place. Versus if you use something in Notion, it'll allow you to have something like a center master hub where you'll put all your ideas in the same place and you'll never lose a thing. You'll keep things organized, and also it'll help you plan for the future if you delegate for a member on your team that you hire when things get more in advanced mode. And if you want a more detailed video about a content system that you can use, plus the content template that I'm using, just let me know below and I'll make sure to do that video next. But your main priority in this pipeline is to have, as I was saying, ideas, but then from those ideas, you turn most of them in drafts. And then, of course, from drafts, then you can delegate from a team member. For example, I usually delegate to my designer on LinkedIn because she gives me a hand with that content. And then, of course, you just publish. But this is extremely useful because now you don't need to rely on whether you have inspiration or not. For example, if I go out to walk my dog and I get an idea, I'll just write it down into my content pipeline. Or if I got 5 minutes while I'm waiting someone, I'll just try to create a draft or something. And then when I'm actually having my batching session where I'm creating as much posts as possible, I make sure I'm actually efficient at that time, because if I have to start from scratch and I have no idea what to post, that'll feel just too intimidating. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, if you want to make this 10 times easier, I'll be sharing this resource with you that I often use with clients. That includes 100 content ideas ready to go, highly customizable for any industry that you're in. Also, you can stop guessing, build your pipeline, and start planning into the future. Of course, a link for the free download will be in the description below. And if this video helped you plan your content, you can watch the one in the screen next that will help you to go to the next step, which is actually creating your content, but in a faster and more efficient way using AI.